Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Misty Valley Natural Processed Ethiopia from Gracenote Coffee. And there's the bag right there. Gracenote Coffee based out of Boston, Massachusetts, and they were featured in our most recent blind taste test rankings video as part of a viewer subscriber recommendation suggestion series where they finished second place out of 5 coffees. The reason for that finish was this was the most flavorful cup of coffee on that day. This is a natural processed Ethiopia Yirgacheffe nonetheless. So not only did it have some pretty distinct and notable blueberry flavor notes, but that made it finish. It probably helped propel it to that second place finish, as well as made it one of the easiest coffees to pick out on the table on that day. And this is not Gracenote's first time appearing on this channel, as we made a trip out to their cafe in Boston, and we wanted to highlight that experience as it was one of the most positive experiences we had with the cafe, as they had run out of batch brew for the day, and rather than saying, sorry, we're out of coffee, they offered to make us a hand brew. I believe it was a Chemex that they made us, and I believe it was a washed Columbia. And while it wasn't necessarily our favorite cup of coffee, we appreciated the fact that they went to the extent of doing something for a customer, rather than just saying, sorry, you're out of luck. And that really resonated with us, so we were very much looking forward to trying one of their full bags of coffee so we could discuss them a little further in depth and something a little bit more our flavor profile, as that Columbia just happened to not be the type of coffee we loved. This right here is day 20 of this coffee. Alright, so the recipe we used for this is, so we'll go with 202 degrees Fahrenheit at 16.67 to 1 water to coffee ratio. This was the second most developed cup of coffee on that table. It was slightly closer to the mod cup and roast profile than it was to the other coffees, but we don't want to call it a medium, so we'll call it a much more medium light than like a light medium, and that's the way we'll describe this roast profile. Alright, with that out of the way, let's start discussing this coffee. So day 7, this is the only coffee we tried before the blind taste test. We knew we were going to be able to pick this one out because it's a natural processed Ethiopia Yirgacheffe, and it was slightly roasty on the first day, and it was pretty chocolate forward. There was some blueberry flavoring, but the coffee felt like it was maybe a little bit too early to be drinking. And day 8 was the blind taste test day, and of course the blueberries. They were significantly better on that day. There was some lemon coming from the cup of coffee as well. Day 9, coffee was improving. There were some distinct florals as well, and there definitely is florals throughout this coffee. Other than that, pretty traditional natural Yirgacheffe cup with the very notable distinct blueberries coming from it. Day 10, blueberries continue to improve. More depth in this cup than expected, as there were some slight stone fruits, even a hint of coconut, and a hint of florals. And this is a complex cup of coffee. I'm not going to lie about that, as there were times where we were getting coconut. This didn't happen on one day. It would appear on day 10, it would appear on another day, I believe like day 19, which we didn't note. And stone fruits did appear different days, florals did appear on different days. It was always blueberry forward, but there were different things you were getting at different times. Just inconsistent and complex, made for a tricky and interesting review. Day 11, there wasn't as much depth as it was chocolate blueberry. Decent, but not as good as the day before. Mentioned coffee was pretty inconsistent in that sense. Day 13, coffee was better. Most interesting part is that the florals had developed really nicely. Still super complex. The natural Yirgacheffe component to this coffee was dominating, but the floral sweetness was there in the finish. Tricky cup of coffee. Day 15, had to acknowledge that even with these tricky components, throughout this coffee we couldn't help but notice that it had been just slightly roastier than maybe we would have expected. Throughout there was a bit of that char, that roasty component throughout this. So once you got past that, there was this wide complexity, interesting flavors coming from the coffee, but not going to lie, this roastiness did kind of throw off the experience of this coffee just in the slightest bit. Day 17, not too much different, although it seemed even slightly roasty on that day. It was still pretty straightforward on the blueberry and chocolate. And again, blueberry and chocolate, dominant flavors in this coffee. They have an interesting description, I believe. Let's see here. Blueberry cheesecake, chocolate, a lemonade, and hibiscus. And there's definitely a bit of lemon. The florals, hibiscus, don't know what hibiscus tastes like, honestly, but yeah, definitely some florals. More akin to that, it's eluding me right now, but yeah, we'll go ahead and get back to that. In the meantime, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. You have to say there's so much in this cup of coffee because nothing here finished at a level 1. Everything is at the very least at a level 2, including spice, saltiness, savory, bitter, smoky, all of it's there. But the 2 things at the highest, of course, the berry fruit because of the blueberries, and the chocolate because of the chocolate. Citrus fruit because there's quite a bit of lemon in this level 3. The lemon's a little inconsistent. Sometimes it can be just as prominent as the blueberries, and sometimes it's not noticeable at all. Stone fruit level 2, and again, that one on one day was shining through so strongly that it probably could have been at a level 3. For the most part, this tasting wheel looks pretty good. Florals sometimes could be level 4, but again, if we made this tasting wheel on 2 different days, it probably doesn't look the same on 2 different days, but overall, for the entire life of this coffee, we feel like that this tasting wheel is a pretty decent representation of the coffee. Alright, so our thoughts and opinions of this coffee as well as Gracenote. We're kind of getting the impression, after not having loved the first cup of coffee we had, that this isn't necessarily by any means a bad cup of coffee. It's, again, just not our taste, our specific flavor profile. It just seems like Gracenote might not be our specific taste. And we really wanted to like Gracenote because we have such a positive opinion and impression of them. They were such nice people, and we really admire their business for everything that they stand for. It's just a little unfortunate that neither of their coffees have really hit the mark for us. That being said, it does seem like there is a great clientele, the type of person we would suggest this coffee for, because there are people that really don't like the overly light coffees, and they do still love getting some, nice, interesting fruit components, some nice complexity, because this definitely has some great fruits to it, has some great complexity to it. There's so much in this cup of coffee, and if you don't mind just a little bit more developed of a roast profile, then this actually feels like a really good cup of coffee for you. And I think if we could have just got past that slight bit of roastiness that we were getting, then we might have enjoyed this coffee a little bit more than we did. But it wasn't our favorite, and of those 5 coffees, even though it finished second on that day, it ended up not being one of our favorite coffees from this series. Just our personal preference, though. I think we'll leave it at that, though. If you have tried this coffee, or if you've tried anything from Gracenote, we'd love to know your thoughts and opinions of that, and them as well as, again, can't emphasize enough that we really admire them and their business, so we really wish them a lot of success and hope everything continues to develop nicely for them. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Misty Valley Natural Processed Ethiopia from Gracenote Coffee. Thank you for watching.